Hello, everybody. Welcome to April's Civic Coffee. I'm Dinah Stevens, and I think I can hear the audio is working. Excellent. Hello, everyone. I'm Dinah Stevens. I am the age-friendly Seattle program. Super happy to be here at the West Seattle Senior Center today, talking about brain health at this month's Civic Coffee. Civic Coffee is a monthly event that the Age-Friendly Seattle hosts in partnership with the Seattle Public Library. And we are thrilled to be joined by three amazing panelists today, including our council representative from the West Seattle area, Lisa Herbold. A couple quick announcements before we get the panel discussion going. I want to let everyone know that we have participants here in person at the West Seattle Senior Center, and we also have folks joining us online. Not only are people here, the light keeps changing behind me. Not only are people here in person, but we have Spanish language interpretation happening simultaneously, which is exciting. Thank you to our interpreters who are doing that work for us today. With that, I think I'm going to hand it over to my partner at the Seattle Public Library to make a few announcements before we dive into the discussion further. So Emily from the Seattle Public Library is in person today, so she'll be making her announcements in person, and we'll share the links relevant to folks online in the chat. Emily, take it away. Thank you, Emily. We'll post those links again for those of you online in the chat. So now I want to officially kick off our programming with a land acknowledgement. And this is something that the City of Seattle does at the start of all of our public events. And the City of Seattle wants to acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people, past and present. We honor with gratitude the land itself and those who have stewarded it. To learn more, please visit www.duwamishtribe.org. And I really encourage you to check out Real Rent Duwamish to find out how you can get involved. Thank you. So we are here today at the West Seattle Senior Center. And before we go further, I want to again thank the Senior Center for hosting us. Thank you, Nancy, for all the work behind the scenes to make this happen. And a big thanks to Margie's Cafe as well for providing some really delicious, really healthy food today. Margie's Cafe is located inside the Seattle Senior Center in West Seattle. And anyone can stop by for a coffee or a treat or lunch. So please keep that in mind if you're local. I also want to thank CMAR for being a partner in this event as well. We have several folks who are with CMAR today, and we really are so grateful that you're here. So with that, we are here today to talk about brain health. We held another event last year on this topic where we talked specifically about some of the challenges LGBTQ older adults are facing, as well as Black older adults. And if you haven't seen that, I encourage you to check it out online. It's recorded there. But today we're going to be talking about tips for keeping your own brain healthy, ways to support people and your loved ones who might be experiencing memory loss. And we're going to learn about what the City of Seattle is doing in this space and what a city role can be when it comes to promoting brain health. To set some context, I want to begin by saying that memory loss is not a normal part of aging. It's a common myth that this memory loss or cognitive decline are inevitable, but that's not true. So I want to say that at the onset. And we can also recognize that many people are impacted by dementia. Just to put this in perspective locally, in Washington, it's estimated that 120,000 people are living with dementia currently, and there are nearly 300,000 caregivers supporting them. And oftentimes, caregivers are older adults themselves who may be assisting a partner as they experience memory loss. Like many health issues, there are deep racial disparities that exist when it comes to brain health. Black Americans, for instance, are twice as likely to develop Alzheimer's than their white counterparts. And 1 in 5 Black Americans over 70 is living with Alzheimer's. So it's impossible to talk about this topic without also thinking about racial equity. The good news is there's a lot we can do to keep our brains healthy and to support people who are experiencing memory loss. So I want to get into it. We'll talk today about some exercise, community building, and other ways the city is promoting good brain health. So with that, I would like to invite Councilwoman Lisa Herbold to the stage. Hello, thank you for joining us. And I will also share that the Councilwoman is here in person, but we have locked her in a quiet room for the sake of this panel.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So, and I'll let folks know that we're going to run this slightly differently than we have in the past. The Councilwoman may need to hop off slightly early, so we want to make sure that we get her voice in. So we're going to ask her some questions at the top, and then we'll bring our other 2 panelists to the stage when it is their turn. So, Councilwoman, I'm going to hand over the floor to you. And I would love to know, you've been a longtime supporter of healthy aging. You've been a welcome presence at many advisory council meetings for the Area Agency on Aging. I know you've led many proclamations to recognize the city's commitment to old. So can you tell us from your perspective why you think brain health is an important topic for discussion? And why is it important to our local community?
Sure. Thank you so much for that question. I come to this work and my passion in leading it for the council through the fact that I am the chair of the council's Committee on Human Services. But even before that, I've always been an advocate for robust funding of human services and good public policy to meet the great spectrum of needs in our community, including the needs of folks of all ages. The city of Seattle has earned an age-friendly city designation, and that's something to be proud of. We received that designation from the AARP, and it means that we're doing more than most cities to support healthy aging, but there's a lot more to do. There's a lot of ways that seniors can support their own brain health, and it's really, really important that we get the word out and make sure that seniors, their families, and caregivers are aware of what's available. Because even in the best of times, senior isolation is a really important public health concern. I've been especially concerned about the impacts of COVID on Seattle seniors, not just on their physical health, but as it relates to their brain health. We're not in the pandemic anymore, but there's still a quiet emergency that's at play. It's been referred to as the shadow pandemic because of restricted movement, social isolation, and economic insecurity that increases vulnerability to violence, vulnerability to self-harm. It impacts all of us, especially seniors. As it relates specifically to issue around brain health, there's definitely a relationship between brain health and social connectivity. It's clear in the research, and we can get into that a little bit more in a bit later.
No, thank you for that. And I'm curious, you mentioned funding, and you've been a proponent of funding for human services, which thank you for that. Can you tell us kind of how you see the city's role in this space? I think funding is probably a part of that, but are there other ways that you see the city as being responsible for our collective brain health?
Absolutely. I think the city takes that role very seriously. We're involved in a bunch of different ways to create an environment that supports brain health. I mentioned the fact that we have been designated as an age-friendly city. Several staff with the City of Seattle serve on the Washington State Dementia Action Collaborative. This is a group of public-private partners committed to preparing the state of Washington for the growing number of people living with dementia. And this includes crafting an actual plan, a Washington State plan to address Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. City also houses a regional, not just for the city, but for our entire region, and a regional area agency on aging. And that group is responsible for administering what is referred to as the Older Americans Act dollars. These are federal funds that really focuses on brain health as a priority for the funds. As mentioned, cognitive decline, memory loss is not a normal part of aging. It happens a lot, but that does not mean we have to normalize it. So creating a community where all older adults can thrive is beneficial for everyone. City of Seattle, as I mentioned, is part of a growing number of age-friendly communities in our region. That also includes Renton, Tacoma, Puyallup, and the word is that Shoreline is also on the way to receiving that designation as well.
Thank you.
And I'm happy to talk about some of the funding pieces too, if you want, but I can also hold that.
No, please do. I think that's a big piece of the puzzle. So please do share.
Absolutely. So through the pandemic, we had access to a lot of federal funds that we did not have access to before. And it was really important for the council, our external stakeholders, folks who are doing, like the West Seattle Senior Center, folks who are doing this work with community, as well as the Human Services Department, we needed to talk about how to prioritize those funds. And one effort that I really focused on is working to make sure that we had funds approved to address senior isolation. And so in 2020, the council approved $1.5 million to address senior isolation and other impacts of the pandemic on older residents. Some of that money included what's referred to as integrated behavioral health services in primary care settings to pregnant and parenting mothers, vulnerable, uninsured populations, and again, seniors over 55. I want to make sure that we are expanding access to basic mental health care because so many of us are experiencing anxiety, isolation, and depression. Funding also included meeting senior centers, senior housing, and other stakeholders to develop the plans that we are currently experiencing to safely reopen. We knew that we would have to plan to do that work, and we'd need to do it in advance. Senior centers are lifelines to those who rely on them, and we all know how keenly felt their closure has been. We also included funds for the what's referred to as the Stay Connected program. It's a partnership between 4 senior centers and the University of Washington. Pilot builds on an established evidence-based program that trains people such as case managers, social workers, and volunteers to work to assess the approximately 20% of seniors who are estimated to be struggling with social isolation. And then once that assessment happens, this program helped to provide targeted interventions that can address symptoms of depression. And then also this funding also provided funding for Wi-Fi hotspots at 30 different locations across the city. So seniors could make use of Wi-Fi safely, access online opportunities for socializing, reading, gathering information, and using video and telehealth. All things that we know were really, really important during the pandemic. And I think a lot of these practices are practices that we can continue now that we're in a different stage moving out of the pandemic.
Thank you for championing that work. I think there's a real connection between social connectivity and brain health, and that has been proven over and over. And there's a growing body of research showing us that being socially engaged really does promote healthy brains and prevent cognitive decline. I'm curious to know how you see the relationship between brain health and social connectivity and kind of the city's role in creating spaces where we can connect with each other socially. And you mentioned digital equity, which I think is a big piece of this because we're not always in person together.
About that. So yeah, digital equity is one really important element, but I think it's also really important to recognize that that nutrition and exercise are really important drivers of cognitive decline, and we need to address those factors as well. So the city has worked really hard to make sure that our seniors are not deficient in nutrients and vitamins that otherwise would put people at more risk of developing dementia. And so we provide a lot of funding to support access for nutritional foods throughout life. Here in District 1, West Seattle and South Park is the area that I refer to as District 1. That's the council's District 1. The Human Services Department funded some really creative efforts in the South Park part of District 1. It's an organization called Cultivate South Park. And they work with the South Park senior citizens. And They work together to bring community together through food and public spaces. They have a El Mercado program. This is an outdoor fresh food and produce market, and South Park senior citizens can continue home deliveries of fresh produce from local farms and hot meals. And again, really essential during the COVID-19 pandemic, but also really helpful to address brain health as well. Also, finding ways to address the needs of culturally specific communities is really important as well. We worked with the council to champion funding for the city's first investment in East African seniors to provide wraparound services at existing meal programs. And again, through our aging and disability services, we not only support meal deliveries to homebound residents, we also support congregate meals where older adults gather, and 13 agencies manage over 50 different nutrition sites, including sites that again provide ethnic and culturally appropriate meals for specific populations. The city also runs the Senior Market nutritional program, Senior Farmers Market nutritional program, providing older adults with a stipend, an $80 stipend to spend on fresh fruits and vegetables at farmers markets. And applications for this program are open right now, and I think we can put some information into the chat about how to apply.
Definitely. Well, thank you for giving us kind of a broad bird's eye view of all the different ways that the city is supporting brain health. And it's a reminder that there are so many issues at play here. So it's about physical health and being able to exercise and access green spaces and enjoy time outside. It's about nutrition and being able to access nutritional foods. It's about staying socially connected, being able to get online, digital equity. So it's a big topic that a lot feeds into. And I think with that, I'm going to invite our other two panelists to join us on stage. So Sandy and Karen, if you don't mind taking yourselves off or bringing yourselves on camera rather. Hey there, welcome. And council member, you are by all means welcome to stay with us if you're able to, but we also know that you may have to pop out. So I see your hand is up. So council member, do you have a question?
That was supposed to be a thumbs up. My apologies. Thank you.
It's like a high five.
Exactly.
Okay, great. So we'll keep you on. We'll keep asking you questions as long as you're able to stay here, but no problem if you have to pop off. So welcome, Karen and Sandy. So I want to provide a quick introduction to our next two panelists. So we've got Sandy Sabursky, who is the co-founder of Elderwise. Thank you, Sandy, for being here. She is the co-author of Elderwise Way, A Different Approach to Life with Dementia, and which really explains the Elderwise philosophy, which we will get to hear firsthand from her today. She practiced physical therapy for 25 years and is a certified saging leader with Saging International. And currently Sandy is the Elderwise board chair and one of the facilitators of the Elderwise Adult Day program, along with Elizabeth Mitchell. And she's passionate about teaching her philosophy to others. So thank you for being here. And next we have Karen Thompson. And Karen has thrown herself into work with the Alzheimer's Association since late 2020 and has been working with the volunteer support group facilitators throughout Washington State. And that also includes North Idaho. After helping support groups transition back to in-person after the pandemic, she turned her attention to the chapter's early stage memory loss programs. And notably right here locally in Seattle, she is involved with the Woodland Park Zoo Walks. Since its inception 10 years ago, the walk has grown and grown, and Karen can tell us all about what that looks like today. She also facilitates the Dementia Care Coordination Program, facilitating referrals for dementia family caregivers. So Karen is a wealth of information about resources available to caregivers. So I think I'm going to toss the next question back to Sandy, I think. Sandy, can you kick us off and tell us a little bit about what the Elderwise philosophy of spirit-centered care is and how you made the decision to pursue that approach?
Sure, thank you. And I enjoyed hearing just now what Lisa Herbold had to say. It's great to hear all the things that the city of Seattle is doing. And I want to say hello to everyone online and everyone in West Seattle. I began this journey of working with people who are living with dementia by wanting to increase my understanding of who a person with dementia is. I wanted to find my way in. As a society, we have an understanding that we aren't our bodies. If I break my leg or have an amputation of a body part, I know that I haven't lost the me of me. I haven't lost my essence. I may be unhappy about it, but I haven't lost my sense of self. Society may not be so sure what to think about if a person has a brain disease. Are you whole if you have dementia? Our philosophy of spirit-centered care says that we are not our brains either. It can be a big loss to have brain disease, but we have not lost the essence of who we are. We are still whole. The commonly accepted philosophy of care is called person-centered care, where the person is at the center of the focus of caregiving needs. Spirit-centered care goes deeper. I thought, if we're focusing on the person, why not go all the way to the depth of who a person is? We call this our essence. Each person may have a different understanding of what essence is. Some might call it truth or justice, others joy or love, or self or consciousness. We try to work in whatever work we are doing from our own essence, from our own deepest part, and at the same time to recognize the deepest part of another person. This attitude informs everything we do, and it is beneficial both for the person living with dementia, who is seen in their wholeness, as well as the care partner, who with this attitude works in alignment with their own values, with their own deepest part, and has the opportunity for their own personal growth.
Thank you. That was really beautiful. That was more than I expected. So thank you. So it sounds like that approach really honors the humanity in all of us and the connection that we can have with each other. So Karen, I'm going to ask you next. Going back to the zoo walks that we mentioned during your intro, can you tell us how those came to be, what the history of those are, the way you see in those as engaging the brain and promoting brain health?
Absolutely. So the Alzheimer's Association started working with the Zoo Walk, which was originally a collaboration between the Seattle Parks and Recreation and the Greenwood Senior Center, Karen Mack, and Haley from the Alzheimer's Association, Haley Adair, who at the time was an intern, and it started in over 10 years ago. And the idea was for a way for people with memory loss and their care partners to get a good outdoor experience with the zoo animals and with each other. Care partners have a opportunity to talk to care partners. People with memory loss can talk to each other. And so it started out 1 day a week, and it was pretty successful right off the get-go. And over the years, it has grown quite a bit. We now have 2 early stage memory walks and a middle stage memory walk, because what we realized after the pandemic was that a lot of Melinda and Barry Franklin are the primary lead volunteers. It's a volunteer run program, and they transitioned to a zoo Zoom during the pandemic, which worked really well. And one of the things that we realized, of course, after the pandemic was that some of those people who had been participating in the memory walk had transitioned out of early stage. And so we thought, well, let's pilot a middle stage, and it has worked fabulously well. And so what we know is that this getting outdoors, rain or shine, interacting with the baby gorillas, because they're like super popular with everybody. They're so cute. And getting this opportunity to sit down afterwards and have coffee and a good visit has been so impactful for everyone, whether it's the people with memory loss, whether it's their care partners, whether it's the volunteers. Everybody benefits so much. And, you know, we've had some volunteers that are like a little unsure, and they're not, you know, like, I don't know if I can do this. And they jump in, they're like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing I do in my life. So, so it's a really great program. And we're really happy to provide this resource for people.
Oh, and who doesn't want to play with baby gorillas? Just a couple quick follow-up questions of things I heard you say. So one, that there's volunteers. And so is this something that folks can sign up to volunteer for?
Yes. Yes, this is I am the staff partner. So like you said, I work for the Alzheimer's Association, and this program is a volunteer-led program. And I actually like to tell the Franklins that I work for them because they are the ones who set the tone of the day, and we need and enjoy having volunteers who participate with each walk. Their responsibility is to kind of make sure everybody stays together and that people are, you know, engaging in safe behavior, but they also are there to engage with everybody and talk to everybody and ask how they're doing. And this is the part that they really love. And so we're always on the hunt for volunteers who want to support this program. And we also, we've become so popular that we need to start another one. So we're going to be looking for volunteers to help us with that. So yes, it's wonderful volunteer opportunity.
Great. So anyone in the audience today who's interested in volunteering or knows someone who might be, spread the word. We'll hook you up with Karen. And I have a question about caregivers, but I think I'll hold it and then we'll circle back to it. And before I go further, I do want to remind folks that people online and in person are welcome to ask questions of our panelists. So I'll be asking questions, but feel free to ask your own. And the way to do that is if you are online, you can add it into the chat and I will help route that information to our panelists. If you are here in person in the West Seattle Senior Center, there are pieces of paper and there's staff in the room. If you don't have one, jot down your question. If you need it translated, the interpreter can help with that. And then someone will bring me that paper and we will make sure it gets to our panelists as well. So questions are welcome and encouraged. And Councilwoman, if you are still on the line and able to take the next question, I have one for you. Great. So we talked about at the onset of the discussion that there are some deep racial disparities when it comes to brain health. And so I know that the city of Seattle has really made a strong commitment to advancing race and social justice. And I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about how you see racial equity connected to brain health and the city's role in that. Oh, Councilwoman, you're on mute. It happens.
Sorry about that. Well, as you say, the city of Seattle does have a strong commitment to advancing race and social justice. We know that older adults of color experience dementia, and both the responsibilities of caregiving other people at a much higher rate than white older adults. And so there's a real connection of work that we need to do to reverse these disparate patterns that we see. I'm on the King County Board of Health, and in 2020, public health and the Seattle King County and the boards of health across the United States declared racism to be a public health crisis, because in every one of the social determinants of health, which means the economic and social conditions that influence individuals and group differences in health status, in every single one of those areas, you'll find disparate outcomes across disparate outcomes impacting people of color. There was a Washington Post article recently that said the pernicious effects of racial discrimination and structural racism take a toll on the brain and the mental health, and the data is concerning. Experiences of racial discrimination are linked with mental health issues such as depression, anxiety, substance use, and PTSD, as well as physical ailments, diabetes, hypertension, obesity. One statistic they gave is Black Americans are twice as likely as white Americans to develop dementia. So, you know, one of the things that the Aging and Disability Services Division, which I mentioned earlier, does is we work to coordinate 3 annual events that specifically focus on wellness among African people of African descent. Memory Sunday is one. It's a community-based event in June where Black faith communities use the power of the pulpit to share information about brain health. There's Grandparents' Day. That's a September event presented in partnership with the Northwest African American Museum, the AARP, and other community partners. And then there's the African American Caregivers Forum that in November focuses on caregiver support with emphasis on memory care. We've also partnered with the University of Washington Memory and Brain Wellness Center to pilot a walking program called SHARP, and that is sharing history through active reminiscence and photo imagery. This is a walking tour specifically for Black elders in the CD who are experiencing memory loss. The neighborhood has changed a lot, but by walking and sharing photos of what used to exist, these memories of their past are sparked and shared history is revived. The Human Services Department, working with the Aging and Disability Services Division, is working on next steps for the pilot. In addition to addressing issues related to racial disparity, the city is also looking at the impacts of how our housing supply addresses the needs of our aging community. And one project that I've championed for a long time that's finally coming to fruition is Gen Pride. This is Seattle's first affordable housing specifically designed for LGBTQ+ seniors. Gen Pride, their project it's called Pride Place. It broke ground in Capitol Hill in 2021 after many, many years of community advocacy and various efforts on the city council and county councils to support it. The rents at Pride Place will be affordable to households earning between 30 to 60% of the area median income. And I'm so excited to report that it is expected to open later this year. There's a gap in services for older LGBTQ+ adults, and it was identified by a research project, again, conducted by our partners at the University of Washington, and they found that only 15% of LGBT seniors access senior services, 15% fear accessing healthcare outside of their community, and 54% feel isolated from others. In King County, there are 27,000 older LGBTQ+ adults. And so these figures, these percentages of that represent the gaps in care for this population are really, really, really significant. And I'm really so pleased that the city's Office of Housing again, after years of advocacy, awarded almost $10 million to support the building of what will be a home for many of our LGBTQ adults in not a lot of time. So that'll be great.
That's so exciting. And thank you for your work on that issue. It's super exciting that that's going to be opening soon here in Seattle. And you raised so many points that I want to touch on. You talked about the social determinants of health, and I think about how inequities over the course of someone's lifetime can really compound in older age. And so all the work the city does to support people throughout their lifetime is essentially also supporting older adults at the end of the day. And you also talked about housing, which is so connected to our social connectivity, which is connected to our brain health. I read this morning, actually, that New York City just passed a ordinance where they are requiring universal design in large development projects, which is a great way to help people age in place, because so many older adults would like to stay in their homes and in their neighborhoods that they love. So thank you for your work leading us in the right direction. And, Councilmember was talking about specific communities, LGBT community, for instance. And so Sandy, my next question is to you, kind of along those lines of tailored programming. Why is it important to have tailored programming? Elderwise brings together people who are living with memory loss in a supportive community where they can find a sense of belonging. What does that really look like in practice? And what are the elements that people can adopt at home with their loved ones?
Right. Belonging to community is so important, and such an important part of our well-being. And this is true for people living with dementia and the rest of us. So the difference being that a person living with dementia, they require support. So it needs to be a supported community. So for example, if I want to go and have coffee with my friends, I can call them up and do that, arrange to make that happen. If I want to go for a walk with my friends, I can call them up and make that happen. So a person living with dementia requires support for that. They may also want to have a walk with their friends or meet their friends for coffee, but won't be able to arrange it themselves. So they need a sort of a supported community. And even so, they might not be able to think about what they want to say. I'm enjoying being with my friends, but I'm not sure what to talk about. So they might need support in thinking, what can I talk about? What would be a topic, and how can I express myself? So, you might have a little idea in your back pocket about, something we can talk about, some holiday, something that's been important. So activities can be modified. When we think about tailoring activities, one thing I like to think about is body, mind, and spirit. So we can do kind of a check if we're reaching all those pieces. Are we doing something for the body? Are we doing something for the mind? Are we doing something for the spirit? And all of us need all those needs met. It's a good check to do that for ourselves as well. So for example, I like my coffee hot in the morning. I like healthy food. I like to go for walks. I like to dance. Those are things that address the body. For the mind, I like to read or paint or write. For the spirit, I might like quiet, reflective time to light a candle. So if I get dementia, I want somebody to help me to make sure that I get those needs met in a way that will suit me. So in other words, we want to nourish all parts of who we are, and having a disease doesn't change this need, but maybe requires a modification of this need. Maybe instead of going on a big hike, I sit outside. Or maybe instead of going to a museum, I look at a painting or a photograph. So it's the same thing on a smaller scale. And if you'd allow me, I'd like to read a poem, this poem from Robert Blake. I put it in the book. And it goes like this: to see a world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wild flower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. One thing you said, I wrote down your quote, which is, having a disease doesn't change our need. And I think that's a powerful thing to remind ourselves. So Sandy, my next question is, or Karen rather, my next question is for you. We've talked a couple times in the program that it's really a myth that cognitive decline is an inevitable part of aging. What are some proactive steps that we can all take to keep our brains healthy as we age and reduce the risk of serious cognitive decline?
Yes, absolutely. Sandy is spot on. Community is very important. And however, wherever you can find community as a caregiver or as a person with memory loss, seek it out. One of the advantages that you have in this metroplex area of Snohomish County, King County, Pierce County is that we have a plethora of groups that are devoted to helping people with memory loss. And so we're really lucky in that we consult with each other, and if somebody comes to us and we know that somebody else has something to offer, we will just send you right over to Sandy and vice versa. So just know that we're here to help you build community. Another thing that I thought was very interesting, we have the annual Alzheimer's Association International Conference, and it brings researchers from all over the world to talk about their research. We had thousands of researchers come, and one of the biggest takeaways in this last year's conference, 2022, was and I know you're going to all roll your eyes, the importance of diet. Okay. And what they said, okay, now I may be a little hazy on the statistic here, or the percentage here, but it's pretty close. It said if 50% of your daily calorie load intake is ultra processed food, it increases your, no, I got it backwards, 30%. 30% of your intake is ultra processed food. It increases your chance of getting dementia by 50%. And ultra processed.
Yeah, Karen, can you just say that one more time so we make sure we get that right?
Yes, and please,
astounding.
It's an astounding, I might not have the exact percentages right, but it is, a small percentage and a big percentage. So 30% of your daily calorie load is ultra processed, can increase your chance of getting memory loss, dementia, by 50%. And so processed food is defined as you pull out your ingredients and you make chocolate chip cookies at home. Ultra processed food is pulling a package of chocolate chip cookies off the shelf. So I'm sure in this day and age and in our area, we're all pretty clear on what processed and ultra processed food is. And so that was quite a shocker for me to learn that. And so, yes, I'm making changes in my life. And really, you think it's going to be hard, but it really isn't as hard as you think when you keep that statistic in mind. So I cannot, stress the importance of that piece of information. Yes, of course, all things in moderation, including moderation. Every once in a while, you just got to have that hot fudge sundae. That's just the way it is. But if you can modify your daily diet to eliminate those ultra processed foods as much as possible, you're a step ahead. And again, also exercise, There's some wonderful, online live exercise programs you can participate. They're in your chair. You don't even have to actually, it's just a thing of getting and moving around and that kind of thing. That's really important. And stimulation, things like the zoo walks. You've got the advantage of the exercise, and although I will tell you it's a stroll, it's not a race. But you're out in the fresh air, you're interacting with people, you get to know these people, you get to love these people that you're with. Importance of community. And again, plethora of resources out here for you.
And it's great to know and hear from your perspective, both of you, that these resources are connected. So it's not a bunch of different disparate people working in their own silos around Seattle. Folks are really connected in this space and want to make sure each individual gets the right care and support. And just, another plug for the Healthy Cafe here at the West Seattle Senior Center. Go Margie's, served us beautiful, healthy food today. So eat up. So Sandy, back to you. So Karen just talked a little bit about the importance of staying active as a preventive measure to promote brain health. But let's talk a little bit about staying active as a caregiver. Staying active while being a caregiver or someone with chronic disease can be really challenging. Do you have any tips for older adults who are in those positions to help stay active and engaged?
Sure, thank you. And just to tag on what Karen was saying for people as preventative medicine to, do all these things, have, get enough sleep, have a good diet, have exercise, socialize. We know these things work, but we kind of go, yeah. But actually, they actually do help. And the same, it also helps a person who has been diagnosed with memory loss. If that person with dementia, if that person can take active control over their own lives, empower themselves to say, I can make a difference if I, do my best to exercise, drink water, and so forth. As a caregiver, we know this, that it's difficult as a caregiver not to be weighed down by challenges and constant demands on our time. So if we can recognize when we need help and when we might need to shift gears, there's some things you can do. One is, if you have a friend or a family member whose company you enjoy, somebody who makes you laugh, that you feel better after spending time with them, try to make a point to have at least some contact with that person, whether it's a phone call or, if possible, to get a bit of respite so that you can have some time to yourself. Exercise is huge for changing gears. So if you can, go for a walk. But if you can't leave the situation you're in, turn on some music and dance for 10 minutes. Just set the timer for 10 minutes. And even if you're it doesn't have to be really rock and roll. It can be quiet, swaying, even just a little bit. You'll be amazed at how that can shift your mental outlook and shift gears, just getting the blood flowing. Deep breathing is another one. Breathe in for 4 counts and out for 5. Now you can set the timer again for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And if you do regular breathing, you'll find yourself after 5 minutes or 10 minutes that you're changed. The other thing is connect with a support group online, or a friend support group online. That's really a good preventative medicine so that you don't fall too low in the situation that you're in.
Thank you. Those are super tangible tips. So thank you for that. So, and time just like flew by, and it's already 1:43. And so we just have a couple minutes left. I think what I would like to ask each of you is, please share with us some resources that you would like people to be aware of, especially here locally, in Seattle and West Seattle in particular, if those exist. And then any words you would like to leave us with today. What do you wish people knew about this topic? And Karen, maybe we'll start with you.
Okay, I'll try to keep this fast because I know Sandy needs time to talk to, and I have a lot of resources. So if you go to our chapter website, which is alzwa.org, you're going to be really thrilled at all of the information that's available to you. There's information about our support groups, and Sandy is correct. You know, sometimes you think, oh, you know, in this particular thing, a caregiver support group might be a little bit intimidating, but you will find it is one of the most valuable things you can do to take care of yourself as a caregiver. And our early stage memory loss programs, there's lots of information like the 10 warning signs of dementia. So our website has lots of information, and our helpline is open. And again, you know, yay, an 800 number, but write this number down. It's 800. Oh, she's putting it in the chat. Thank you. 800-272-3900. And when you call this number 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, in over 200 languages, you're going to talk to somebody who can help you. And they have lots of information. They can direct you to services. They can direct you to resources. And, you know, if you're lying in bed staring at the ceiling and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you can't get that hamster wheel to stop, and you're just so fretting and just concerned and worried about your loved one, they're going to love to talk to you at 2 o'clock in the morning. Trust me. So please take advantage of that. And I probably should shut up. Okay, go ahead, Sandy.
Okay, one last comment just on some things you can do at home. I just want to say living in the present is one tip. And, you know, for example, if you're having coffee, if you're doing something with someone, what you can do is freeze that moment and then put a magnifying glass to it and sort of expand it into, you know, and then you'll say, who am I with? What's happening? And you just have a little appreciation of a little more appreciation with the flower, or, you know, whatever is happening, the raindrop. You can, the person that you're sitting next to, how much you value that person. So living in the present and slowing down time. You know, we call it the elder-wise time zone. Don't rush. If you want to know more about spirit-centered care, which I think is going to be the next new thing, that, you know, from person-centered care, I'm hoping we all move towards spirit-centered care. We have an online training program, which you can find out through our website, elderwise.org. And we have a book available at Seattle and King County Public Libraries if you want to read more about the Elder-Wise Way, a different approach to life with dementia. And I can't leave without mentioning the Memory Hub, which is it's put on at the University of Washington Memory and Brain Wellness Center. And collaborating organizations that work, you know, as part of the community to, there's just so many resources there. Lisa Herbold talked about, you know, the age-friendly Seattle. Well, we also want dementia-friendly Seattle. And if you go to the Memory Hub, you can find out about Dementia Friends, where you can learn how to be a friend to people living with dementia. And there's also technology. If you want to assist with technology, they have a person come in that's an expert. You can make an appointment. Alzheimer's Association is there. Full Life is there. The Fry Art Museum is there. So there's a lot of resources at the Memory Hub.
Yeah. Thank you both so much. I think, I'll try to summarize and not as eloquently as you two, but what I heard and taking away today is that it's important to nourish all parts of ourselves, mind, body, and spirit. There is a coordinated network here in Seattle. So if you find your way to one organization, chances are they can help you find your way to others. So don't feel intimidated to try to find the right door. You'll get there. Diet and exercise, as much as we hear it, turns out it is true. And know when we ourselves need support as care partners, and seek out the people who bring us joy and folks and groups who can support us. And I think with that, I will just close us out and say thank you to both of you so much for the energy and the brains and the heart that you bring to this work. I'm glad to be part of a city that is thinking about these issues, as the councilwoman shared, and supporting brain health in the ways a city can. And thanks to you two today, again, to our hosts here at West Seattle Senior Center, to all of those of you in the room, and those of you online, and again, Margie's Cafe for providing the food today. So with that, thank you, and we'll see you next time at Civic Coffee in May. Goodbye, all.